It's official. From the heart of the Vatican comes a shocking announcement. Pope Francis, or a representative of his, has ordered that the synodal innovations be implemented everywhere, without exception. The Pope seems more and more distant. His true condition remains shrouded in mystery, and yet someone wields an iron fist. This isn't just a simple change, but the announcement of a true ending. Keep watching until the end and you'll understand why. At the heart of the crisis shaking, the Church lies a doubt never confessed, but now shared among the faithful. Is it still the Pope who truly guides the community, or is the Vatican orchestrating a stage show to prepare for the next conclave? In a time marked by increasingly radical reforms and by the systematic demolition of tradition, the impression that something unsettling is happening in the halls of church power is impossible to ignore. Rumors are spreading like wildfire. Some claim with absolute certainty that Francis can no longer govern, perhaps he isn't even alive, and that behind the ancient Roman walls an unprecedented operation is underway to ensure the continuity of a predefined project. They intend to drag the Church into a future where the primacy of Peter dissolves into a permanent synodality, a private assembly devoid of true authority, where the deposit of faith is gradually emptied and adapted to the demands of modernity. It's not hard to understand where these suspicions come from. The Pope's prolonged absence, the Vatican's reluctance to provide believable visual updates on his health, even the release of an audio message that some believed was generated by artificial intelligence. All these things make people suspicious, and if a video were to spread, any proof would become unnecessary. Trust would be completely broken. Is it still possible to have faith in someone who, in the last decade, has silenced uncomfortable voices, removed the sacred from the liturgy, and manipulated the language of doctrine until it became ambiguous and permissive? Meanwhile, the world witnesses the umpteenth acceleration of the reformist project. What began as a temporary synod has been transformed into a permanent structure. It's official now. The process will be extended until 2028, that is, 4 times the length of the Second Vatican Council. What is the real goal of this extension? Why the urgency to make certain reforms irreversible right now, when it's clear that Pope Francis's time at the top is limited? It is, instead, a transcendental transformation in which the very destiny of the Catholic Church is at stake. And yet, while all of this unfolds under the gaze of an increasingly resigned clergy, the fundamental question remains: who is really deciding in Rome? The latest announcement from the Holy See is, to say the least, revealing. Pope Francis has given the green light to the convening of an ecclesial assembly for 2028, the culmination of a path that is being sold as the implementation of the synodal decisions. In other words, the conclusions already drawn in 2024 must now be put into practice in dioceses around the world. The Vatican speaks of accompaniment, but the most appropriate term would be imposition. Behind the veneer of reassuring words hides a silent revolution. The ultimate goal is to promote a radical reform in which the laity, conveniently selected, will have a growing influence in the Church's decisions. But who will these lay people be? Not those faithful to tradition, but men and women educated in the school of ecclesiastical progressivism, ready to sacrifice the truth on the altar of compromise with the world. The seriousness of the situation is also confirmed by the language of the project's promoters. Cardinal Hollerich, one of the main architects of the synod, has spoken openly about a new synodal church, a completely new church. This isn't just a simple pastoral update or a return to the evangelizing mission, but the construction of a completely new institution molded by modern standards, where divine revelation becomes flexible and doctrine adapts to the wishes of the masses. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's reality. The official documents clearly state it. The Pope has stated that the final text of the 2024 Synod is part of the ordinary magisterium of the successor of Peter and therefore must be accepted without objections. This is the closest thing to papal infallibility that Francis has done, not to defend the faith, but to solidify a new direction. Anyone who opposes will be progressively marginalized, if not punished. This is the turning point. The church that emerges from the ashes of tradition is no longer the one that Christ founded on Peter. The most urgent question isn't just what will happen in the next 3 years, but whether whoever succeeds Francis will have the courage to finish the job. The next conclave won't be a simple election, but the final act of a meticulously orchestrated plan to make the synodal revolution permanent. Francis's successor must be a perfectly aligned man, a true Francis II, capable of consolidating and completing the transformation of the Catholic Church into a radically different reality. The gears are already in motion. The cardinals faithful to tradition are systematically sidelined, while the new, carefully selected appointments reinforce the progressive bloc. No detail is left to chance. Alliances are forged, secret pacts are signed, an artificial consensus is built around the ideal candidates. The strategy is refined. On one hand, they spread the idea that the synod on synodality is an unstoppable process, that no future pope can question it without being labeled a traitor to the Church's renewal. On the other hand, any opposition is demonized beforehand, labeling as extremists and enemies of unity those cardinals who dare to challenge the current direction. But it doesn't end here. There is an even more cunning weapon: information manipulation. For months now, the accommodating media, the ones that usually ignore the Church except to criticize it, have been building the perfect narrative. They talk about a church that's finally opening up to the world, about a Pope Francis who's fighting against internal resistance, and about an urgent need to avoid going back to the past. The psychological pressure is relentless, and the message is clear. The conclave must continue on this path with no other options. And yet, despite everything, the resistance is growing. No matter how much they try to suppress tradition, it continues to reappear, showing that the Church is not just a human institution, but a supernatural reality, impossible to destroy with simple power strategies. True men of faith, those who have not surrendered to the temptations of compromise, are fighting with courage. They are bishops, priests, religious and simple faithful who, in a time of confusion and ambiguity, cling to the unchanging truth of the gospel. The communities adhering to traditional doctrine are growing stronger despite the hostility surrounding them. Traditional seminaries are thriving, while the modernist ones are emptying. Traditional masses are being obstructed and reduced, but the faithful, instead of scattering, are uniting even more. The young people, whom the progressive hierarchy thought they could win over with a watered-down and complacent religion, are instead seeking the sacred, the beauty of the liturgy, and the depth of doctrine. However, there's something that goes beyond all human logic: providence. Even though it may seem like evil is winning, the history of the Church teaches us that, in the darkest hour, God always raises up people ready to defend His truth. And that moment might be closer than you think. What do you think? If this video has touched you, leave a comment with an amen. God bless you.